The knocking started at exactly 12:16 a.m. At first, Alex thought it was the wind. March nights had a way of making the house creak and groan, but something about the sound made their stomach tighten. A slow, deliberate rhythm. 3 knocks, a pause, 3 more. They lay still in bed, staring at the ceiling, waiting for it to stop. It didn't. With a deep breath, Alex slid out from under the covers and tiptoed toward the front door. The apartment was silent except for the occasional hum of the fridge. They peered through the peephole, half expecting to see nothing. Instead, they saw movement. A shadow flickered just out of view, shifting along the dimly lit hallway. Their breath caught in their throat. The hallway light outside their door was flickering, bathing everything in uneven, sputtering light. Someone was out there. Alex hesitated. They lived alone. No visitors, no expected packages, nothing. And yet, the knocking continued. Their phone vibrated in their pocket. A message. It's March 16th. You remember, don't you? Their blood turned to ice. They had no idea who the sender was, and yet the words stirred something in their mind. A distant feeling, like déjà vu, but wrong. They didn't remember anything special about March 16th, but suddenly, the date felt important. The knocking stopped. Alex exhaled, backing away from the door. They needed sleep. Maybe it was some drunk neighbor at the wrong apartment. That had to be it. But when they turned, their bedroom door was open. They were sure, absolutely sure, they had closed it before coming out. A low, whispering static filled the air. They turned toward the TV in the living room. It was on, flickering with black and white noise. The remote sat untouched on the coffee table. Their reflection in the dark screen looked strange, slightly delayed, as if they were moving slower than reality. The phone vibrated again. Check the basement. Alex's breath hitched. They didn't have a basement. A sound came from down the hall. A slow, dragging shuffle, like something moving across the hardwood floor. Alex's chest tightened. The air in the apartment felt thick, suffocating. Their fingers hovered over the phone screen, debating whether to call someone. The police? A friend? But who would believe them? Something was wrong. Swallowing hard, they forced themselves to move toward the hallway. With each step, the air grew colder. The apartment layout was small, just a bedroom, bathroom, and living room. There was no basement, and yet, as they turned the corner, there it was. A door that had never been there before. A plain wooden door with a rusted handle, standing at the end of the hallway. Their breath came in shallow gasps. Their mind screamed at them to turn back, to run, but their hand was already reaching forward, fingers trembling as they gripped the knob. It was cold. The door swung open on its own. A narrow staircase led downward into absolute blackness. The air that rose from below was damp, stale, wrong. Something moved in the darkness, a soft rustling sound followed by a whisper. Alex froze. Their phone vibrated again, a video file. They hesitated before pressing play. The screen showed their own living room, right now in real time, except they weren't in it. The camera feed was slightly distorted, as if filmed through old security footage, but the living room was empty. Then, movement. A figure stepped into frame. It was them. Alex's stomach dropped. Their duplicate stood motionless in the living room, staring at the screen as if they knew Alex was watching. Then, with slow, unnatural movements, the other Alex tilted their head, their lips curling into a smile too wide, too wrong, and then the screen glitched. A new message. It's your turn. The lights in the apartment went out. A breath brushed against the back of Alex's neck. The house had never felt empty before. Even when Lila was alone, there was always a sense of warmth, of familiarity. But tonight was different. Something about March 16th made the air in her home feel wrong. She tried to ignore it at first, the unease, the strange feeling in her chest that made her stomach twist. She told herself it was just another night, another long evening spent alone, reading in bed while the wind howled outside. But then, at exactly 12:16 a.m., the sound started. A faint tapping, software rhythmic, coming from inside the walls. Lila sat up in bed, her fingers gripping the blanket as she strained to listen. At first, she thought it was the pipes. Old houses made weird noises, right? But this wasn't random. It was deliberate. Tap, tap, tap. A pause. Then again, closer this. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand. She reached for it with shaky hands, her breath catching in her throat as she read the message. You're awake. Good. No number, no contact name. Just those 4 words. Lila's heartbeat pounded in her ears. She swallowed hard, willing herself to stay calm. It had to be a prank. Someone messing with her. Then, the closet door creaked open. Lila froze. She hadn't touched it, hadn't even been near it. And yet, she watched in horror as the door slowly swung inward, revealing only darkness. Her breath came in short gasps. She didn't want to move, didn't want to acknowledge what she was seeing. But then, the smell hit her. A foul, rotting stench, like something old, something dead, and then something shifted inside. Her phone buzzed again. Look inside! Lila couldn't move. The tapping started again, louder, more frantic, coming from inside the closet. Then, something stepped forward. At first it was just a shadow, a shape in the darkness, hunched and unnatural. Then, long fingers wrapped around the edge of the door, fingers that were too thin, too brittle looking, like bone covered in stretched skin. And then, the whisper, I've been waiting for. The lights flickered. The closet door slammed shut. Lila gasped, her heart hammering against her ribs as she scrambled out of bed. The room was silent again. Her phone vibrated. One final message. See you next year. The storm outside rattled the windows, but it wasn't the wind that made Noah uneasy. It was the footsteps, software careful, coming from the hallway outside his bedroom. He sat up in bed, his pulse quickening. The house was supposed to be empty. No visitors, no pets, nothing but silence. And yet, he could hear them, slow, deliberate steps just beyond his door. Noah held his breath, straining to listen. Maybe it was the pipes or the wind pushing against the old wooden floors. He wanted to believe that. He needed to. But deep down, something felt wrong. The sound stopped. His fingers tightened around the edge of the blanket. Silence stretched across the room, heavy and suffocating. Noah exhaled, forcing himself to relax. He was being paranoid, just his imagination. Then, his phone vibrated on the nightstand. The sudden noise nearly made him jump out of his skin. He reached for it with shaking hands, the dim light of the screen illuminating his face. A new notification. New video message. Noah frowned. Who the hell would send a video at this hour? He tapped the screen. The video loaded, and what he saw made his stomach drop. It was a recording of his bedroom door from outside. Noah's breath hitched. The hallway light in the video flickered, casting long, jagged shadows. The camera angle was low, as if someone was crouching just outside his room. Then the frame shifted. A figure stepped into view, tall, unmoving, watching the door. The image was distorted, as though the camera struggled to focus. The figure was blurred, wrong, its edges flickering like a glitching screen. Noah's chest tightened. His fingers hovered over the screen. This wasn't real. It couldn't be. The figure moved. The door handle in the video twitched. Noah's head snapped toward the real door. His breath caught. The handle was still. No movement. But when he looked back at the phone, the video glitched. When the image returned, the figure was gone. Noah's stomach twisted. He swallowed the lump in his throat, his fingers shaking as he scrolled back. Had he imagined it? Before he could replay the footage, another message. Let me in. Noah's blood ran cold. His heartbeat pounded against his ribs. His eyes darted toward the door again. He half expected to see the handle turn, the wood creak, the darkness behind it shift, but nothing happened. His phone buzzed again. Another message. I know you're awake. A lump of fear lodged in his throat. His breathing grew shallow. He had two choices, ignore it or check. Ignoring it meant sitting in bed, waiting for something to happen. And if this was some kind of twisted game, he didn't want to be the one playing defense. Slowly, Noah swung his legs off the bed. The wooden floor was cold beneath his feet. Every step he took toward the door felt like stepping into something irreversible. He placed his hand on the knob, paused. Then, he twisted it. The door creaked open an inch, just enough to see the dark hallway beyond. It was empty. His heart thudded painfully in his chest. The house was still, quiet. But the air felt different. Thick, wrong, as if someone had just been there. He exhaled. Maybe it was a joke. Someone messing with him. It had to be. Then, from deep inside the house, he heard something. A soft exhale. A breath. It wasn't his. Noah's body tensed. He wasn't alone. The floor creaked. Not behind the door. Not in the hallway. Behind him. Noah spun around, but there was nothing. His room was empty. The air felt heavier, suffocating. It pressed against his skin, coiling around his lungs like invisible fingers. Then, his phone vibrated one last time. A video. His hands shook as he pressed play. It was his bedroom, filmed from inside. The camera faced his bed, where he had been sleeping just minutes ago. The blankets were still slightly ruffled, his pillow still warm. And then, the closet door opened. A figure stepped out, tall, wrong. It moved with slow, unnatural jerks, as if its body wasn't used to motion. Its head tilted at an unnatural angle, and though the video was too dark to make out its face, Noah felt its eyes on him. The video ended. Noah couldn't breathe. His chest tightened as realization crept over him like ice water. The messages, the figure, it had never been outside. It had been inside the whole time. His phone slipped from his hand, hitting the floor with a soft thud. Behind him, the closet door creaked open. The night was unnervingly quiet. Sarah had always been comfortable living alone. Her little house at the edge of town was cozy, safe. She enjoyed the solitude. But tonight, something felt off. She had spent the evening curled up on the couch, watching old horror movies. The wind howled outside, rattling the windows every so often, but it was nothing unusual. At 12:16 a.m., everything changed. A knock echoed through the house. It was soft but deliberate. Coming from the front door, Sarah froze, her hand tightening around the blanket. She hadn't been expecting anyone. Another knock. Her heart pounded. She reached for her phone and pulled up the security app connected to her doorbell camera. The live feed loaded, displaying the grainy black and white footage of her front porch. Nothing. No one was there. Sarah exhaled. Maybe she imagined it. Maybe it was just the wind pushing against the old wooden frame. She was about to set her phone down when another knock sounded, this time from the back door. A cold wave of fear crashed over her. That wasn't possible. There was no way someone could have moved that fast without being seen. Her breath caught in her throat as she switched to the backyard camera. The feed flickered for a second before displaying the porch. Empty. No one. Just the dark, swaying trees beyond the fence. Sarah's fingers trembled as she locked her phone. She needed to calm down. It was probably a trick of her imagination, maybe a branch hitting the house. But then, her bedroom door creaked open. Sarah's body went rigid. The door was just slightly ajar, swinging softly as if nudged. The air in the room suddenly felt thick, heavy. She had closed that door earlier. She was sure of it. Her phone vibrated. A new message. Her stomach twisted as she looked at the screen. "Are you awake?" Her throat tightened. The number was unknown. She hesitated, fingers hovering over the screen. Her heart pounded so loudly she could hear it in her ears. Then, another message. "Look outside." Her breathing turned shallow. She didn't want to, but her hands moved on their own. She turned toward the window, fingers gripping the edge of the curtain. Slowly, she pulled it aside just an inch, just enough to see her reflection. And behind her, in the darkened hallway, something moved. Sarah spun around, nothing. Her bedroom was empty. The door was still open, the hallway beyond shrouded in darkness. Her phone vibrated again. She didn't want to look, but she did. A photo message. She opened it with trembling hands. The picture was dark, grainy, but she recognized it immediately. It was taken from inside her closet, and in the corner of the image, just barely visible, was the outline of a hand. Sarah's breath hitched. Her entire body was frozen, her mind racing through 1,000 possibilities. A new message. "I'm coming out now." The closet door clicked, and slowly, it began to open. The clock on my nightstand read 3:12 a.m. when I woke up. Not to the sound of my alarm, not to the wind outside, but to the sound of breathing. Deep, slow, not mine. I held my breath, heart hammering against my ribs. The darkness around me felt wrong, thick with something unseen. I wasn't alone. I could hear it. Someone breathing in my room. The air was cold against my skin as I forced myself to stay still. The sound was coming from the corner near my closet. My phone was on the nightstand, but reaching for it would mean moving, and I wasn't sure if I was ready for that. The breathing shifted. A slow, deliberate inhale, then an exhale, almost like a sigh. It was watching me. I tried to convince myself I was dreaming. Sleep paralysis, maybe? I had read about it before. Your body frozen, your mind still half trapped in the dream. But no, this was real. I could move. I just didn't want to. Seconds stretched into eternity. Then I took the risk. I moved, just a little. My fingers inched toward my phone. The breathing stopped. My stomach twisted. The silence was worse. Slowly, I wrapped my hand around my phone, lifted it, and turned on the screen. The dim glow illuminated the room, and something moved. A shadow, a shape, low to the ground, crouching, watching. I barely bit back a scream. My fingers fumbled as I turned on the flashlight. The beam cut through the darkness, landing on the open closet. It was empty, but I had seen something. I knew I had. My chest tightened as I swung the light across the room. The corners, the doorway, nothing. No one. I sat up, trying to steady my breath. Maybe it had been a nightmare. Maybe my eyes were playing tricks on me. Then my phone buzzed. A new notification. Unknown number. One new video message. My fingers hesitated before tapping it open. The video was dark, shaky. It took me a moment to realize what I was looking at. My bedroom. The camera was facing me. The footage was recent, seconds ago, and in the video, just behind me, the closet door was still opening. The video ended. My blood ran cold. My hands shook as I turned back to the closet, the flashlight beam trembling with me. The door was open just a crack wider. I hadn't heard it move. The air grew thicker. The room felt smaller. Then, the breathing started again. This time it was right behind me. I was never afraid of being alone at night, until that night. It was 2:37 a.m. when I heard the first sound, a soft, rhythmic tapping. I was half asleep, wrapped in my blanket and barely processing the noise. It was faint, coming from outside, probably the wind against my window. Then I heard it again. Tap, 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 closer. Fully awake now, I sat up, straining to listen. My room was dark, except for the dim glow of the street lamp filtering through the curtains. The tapping had stopped. Maybe I imagined it. I sighed, reaching for my phone to check the time. 2:39 a.m. I was about to set my phone down when I noticed something strange. A notification. I didn't remember my phone vibrating, but there it was. An unknown number. "You're still awake." My chest tightened. My fingers hovered over the screen, cold with hesitation. Then, another message. "Come look outside." My stomach twisted. Number this had to be a prank. Some kind of sick joke. I placed my phone face down on the nightstand, refusing to engage, and then I heard it again. Tap, tap, tap. But this time, it was inside. My body went rigid. The sound was coming from my closet. I didn't move, didn't breathe. My eyes locked onto the dark wooden door across the room. Something was in there. A long silence followed. Then, tap, tap, tap. The knocking was slow. I couldn't do it. I had to leave. Now carefully, I reached for my phone, trying not to make a sound. I turned on the flashlight and pointed it toward the closet door. Nothing. Then, as I watched, the doorknob twisted. My heart nearly stopped. I shot out of bed, scrambling for the bedroom door. My hands fumbled with the lock, but it wouldn't budge. Tap, tap, tap. Louder now. More urgent. I turned back just in time to see the closet door slowly creaking open, and in the sliver of darkness beyond, I saw an eye, wide, unblinking, watching me. I let out a strangled scream, throwing myself against the bedroom door, pounding against it. My phone slipped from my hand, the flashlight spinning wildly. The light landed on the closet, and there was nothing. The door was closed. The tapping had stopped. I gasped for air, trembling, my hands still clutching the doorknob. Then my phone vibrated against the floor. A new message. With shaking hands, I picked it up and unlocked the screen. A photo. It was me, taken from inside the closet. I've lived alone for 3 years now, and I've never been the type to scare easily. But what happened that night made me question everything. It started with a sound, a whisper. I was half asleep, the hum of my ceiling fan lulling me into unconsciousness. When I heard it, software, almost indistinct, but there, a voice. My eyes snapped open. The room was dark, eerily still. I listened, my breath caught in my throat. Maybe I had imagined it. Then I heard it again, closer. The whispering wasn't coming from outside. It was in my room. A slow, crawling fear spread through me as I turned toward my bedroom door. It was slightly ajar, revealing only pitch-black darkness beyond. Then, ever so slightly, the door moved, just an inch, as if someone had nudged it. I bolted upright, my heart hammering against my ribs. My phone was on the nightstand, the screen glowing softly in the dark. I reached for it with trembling fingers, turning on the flashlight. The beam illuminated, empty. My breath came out in shallow gasps. Maybe it was just the wind. Maybe the door hadn't been closed properly. Then, a footstep, right outside my door. My stomach clenched. That was not the wind. I clenched my phone tighter, slowly swinging my legs over the side of the bed. My feet barely touched the floor when the whisper came right next to my ear. "Don't move," I screamed. My body reacted before my mind could, lunging for the door and yanking it open. I fumbled with the hall light, flooding the space with brightness. Nothing. The hallway was empty, but I could feel it. Something was here, watching, waiting. My phone vibrated violently in my hand. A new message, unknown number. "You shouldn't have gotten up." A chill ran down my spine. My hands shook as I opened the message, only to see an image, a photo, of me, lying in bed, taken from inside my room. I felt something cold brush against my neck, a whisper breathy and close. "Get back in bed." I've always been comfortable being alone at night. It never really bothered me, until that night. It was just past 3 a.m. when I woke up to the sound of my bedroom door creaking open. At first, I thought maybe I had left a window open or causing a draft. But as I lay there staring at the door, I realized I had locked it before going to bed. A tight knot formed in my stomach. I wasn't expecting anyone. I lived alone. The hallway beyond my door was pitch black. The air felt thick, heavy. I strained my ears, listening. Silence. Then, a footstep, software deliberate. Inside my room, I stopped breathing. My blankets felt suffocating, trapping me in place. The darkness suddenly felt alive, shifting around me. I reached for my phone, fumbling in the dark. My fingers barely brushed the screen when I heard it. A voice. "You shouldn't be awake." Right next to my bed. I froze. Every instinct in me screamed, "Don't move." Then I saw it. A shadow, not mine, looming in the dim light, just beyond the edge of my bed. I could barely make out its form. Tall, hunched slightly, its head tilted unnaturally to the side. The whisper came again, soft and crawling. "Go back to sleep." A paralyzing dread gripped me. I couldn't run, couldn't scream. Then I heard it shift, moving closer. My phone was still in my hand. I turned on the flashlight in one desperate motion and aimed it toward the shadow. Nothing. The room was empty, but but my bedroom door was now completely open. I shot out of bed, heart pounding, scanning every inch of my room. There was no one there, no sign of movement. Then my phone buzzed. A new message, unknown number. Turn off the light. I stared at the screen, my blood running cold. Then another message, a photo, a blurry image taken from inside my room of me with a figure standing over my bed. I woke up to the sound of my phone vibrating against my nightstand. The screen glowed in the dark, displaying a new message. Unknown number. You left your back door open. My stomach dropped. I lived alone. And I was sure, absolutely sure, that I had locked all my doors before going to bed. A cold wave of fear washed over me. My bed suddenly felt too big, the air too still. I didn't want to move. I didn't want to check. But the thought of my back door open was worse than staying frozen in fear. I reached for my phone with trembling fingers and typed out a response. Who is this? No reply. I turned on my bedside lamp, my heart hammering. The dim light did little to push back the oppressive darkness pressing against my bedroom walls. I swung my legs over the bed and sat there listening. Nothing. The house was silent. I gathered my courage and stood, creeping toward my bedroom door. The hallway stretched before me, eerily still. The living room was just beyond it, and then the kitchen, where the back door was. With every step, the floorboards groaned beneath me. I reached the kitchen and stopped. The cold night air seeped in, chilling my skin. The back door was wide open. The darkness beyond it was impenetrable. Something could be standing there, just outside, watching me. My hands shook as I reached for the doorknob, ready to slam it shut. But then, my phone vibrated again. I looked down. Unknown number. I wouldn't do that if I were you. I nearly dropped the phone. My breath came in shallow gasps. Slowly, my eyes darted toward the dark backyard, dread twisting in my stomach. Then I saw it, a figure, standing just beyond the doorway, tall, motionless, its face swallowed by the night. I stepped back instinctively, but before I could move any further, the lights in my house flickered and went out. The only light left was from my phone screen, its glow casting eerie shadows across the kitchen. My pulse pounded in my ears. Then my phone vibrated again. I didn't want to look, but I did. Unknown. Number? Too late. The screen flashed. A new message, a photo, of me, standing in the kitchen, taken from inside the house. I never believed in ghosts, demons, or anything supernatural until that night. It was a cold, quiet night, and I was home alone. I had fallen asleep on the couch, the TV playing quietly in the background. It wasn't until my phone vibrated on the coffee table that I stirred awake. A new message. Unknown number. You should lock your front door. My blood ran cold. I sat up instantly, eyes darting toward the front door. It was unlocked. I was sure, absolutely sure, that I had locked it before settling in for the night. My heart pounded as I slowly got up and approached the door. My fingers hesitated over the deadbolt before finally twisting it into place. Click. I exhaled, trying to shake the unease creeping up my spine. Maybe it was just a prank, a weird coincidence. Then my phone vibrated again. Another message. Unknown. Number. That won't help. A sharp chill prickled down my arms. I turned around slowly, scanning the darkened room. The TV cast flickering shadows across the walls. But otherwise, the house was completely still. Then, a creak. My body stiffened. It came from the hallway, the one leading to my bedroom. I swallowed hard, forcing myself to step closer. The air felt heavy, pressing down on me. The hallway stretched into darkness, the light from the TV barely reaching its entrance. I took another step, another. Then, my phone vibrated again. I glanced down, hands trembling. Unknown number. Don't turn around. My breath hitched. But the problem was, I was already facing forward. A slow, crawling fear spread through me. My mind screamed at me to run, to get out of the house, to do anything but stand there. Then, I felt it. A breath. Cold. Right against my neck. I spun around, my heart nearly stopping. Nothing. The living room was empty. The door was still locked. I was alone. Or so I thought. My phone vibrated once more. This time, it was a photo. A grainy, blurry image, taken from behind me. I saw myself standing in the hallway, and right behind me, nearly touching my shoulder, a figure, tall, shadowy, head tilted at an unnatural angle, and worst of all, it was smiling. I never used to be afraid of being home alone until that night. I was sitting in bed, scrolling mindlessly through my phone, when I heard it, a knock at the window. It was soft, almost hesitant. I froze, my breath caught in my throat. My bedroom was on the second floor. Slowly, I turned my head toward the window. The curtains were closed, but I could see the faint outline of something pressed against the glass. I didn't move. I barely even breathed. My heart hammered in my chest as I stared at the shadow on the other side of the curtain. Then, knock, knock, louder. I wanted to believe it was my imagination, maybe a tree branch or an animal, but deep down, I knew the truth. Something was out there. I reached for my phone with shaking hands, opening the camera app. Slowly, carefully, I lifted it and aimed toward the window, turning on the flash. Click. The bright burst of light illuminated the room for only a split second, but it was I saw it. A face, not human, twisted, hollow, grinning. I dropped my phone, scrambling backward until my spine hit the headboard. My breath came in ragged gasps, my whole body trembling. Then, the curtains started to move, not from the wind, not from anything natural. Something was pulling them apart. I lunged forward and grabbed the edge of the fabric, yanking them shut again. My pulse pounded so hard I thought I might pass out. My phone vibrated from where it had landed on the bed. A new message. Unknown number. I saw you too. My stomach twisted into a tight knot. I didn't want to look, but my hands moved on their own. I picked up the phone and opened the message. It was a photo, a blurry, grainy image of me, sitting in bed, taken from outside the window. It started with a whisper. I had been home alone for hours, curled up on the couch, mindlessly watching TV. The house was silent except for the low hum of the screen. Then, I heard it, a faint, hushed whisper from down the hallway. My body stiffened. I muted the TV, straining to listen. Silence. Maybe I imagined it. Maybe it was just my mind playing tricks on me. Then, a floorboard creaked. I wasn't imagining it. I sat there, frozen, gripping the blanket around me like a shield. The sound had come from the hallway leading to my bedroom. Someone was in the house. I reached for my phone with shaking hands, unlocking it as quietly as I could. I was about to dial for help when a new notification appeared. Unknown number. Why did you mute the TV? I almost dropped my phone. My breath came in short, sharp gasps. Who was this? My hands trembled as I typed a response. Who is this? No reply. I swallowed hard and slowly stood up, every muscle in my body screaming at me to run. Then, tap, tap, tap. I whipped my head toward the hallway. The bedroom door, which had been wide open earlier, was now almost closed. Just a small crack remained, and in that crack, a sliver of a face, watching me. I gasped, stumbling backward, nearly tripping over the coffee table. My entire body was drenched in cold sweat. Then, my phone buzzed again. Unknown number. I see you! I bolted toward the front door, fumbling with the locks, my fingers numb with fear. But just as I turned the handle, the power went out. The house was plunged into suffocating darkness. And then, from behind me in the pitch-black hallway, a voice right against my ear. You shouldn't have looked! I never used to be scared of the dark until that night. It was late, and I was home alone. Rain tapped against the windows, and a soft wind howled through the trees outside. I'd just finished brushing my teeth when the bathroom light flickered. For a second, everything went dark. Then the light snapped back on, and in the mirror, I wasn't alone. A figure stood behind me, tall, shadowy, featureless. I spun around, heart hammering. Nothing. The bathroom was empty. I let out a shaky breath, forcing a nervous laugh. Just my imagination, probably exhaustion. I needed sleep. I turned off the light and stepped into the hallway. That's when I noticed it. My bedroom door. It was open. I was sure I had left it closed. A slow, creeping dread crawled up my spine. I hesitated, staring into the darkness beyond the doorway. Then my phone vibrated in my pocket. A message. Unknown number. Go to bed. My breath caught in my throat. My hands went clammy. Who was this? I typed back with trembling fingers. Who is this? 3 dots appeared. They were typing. I waited. Then the reply came. Unknown number. You're not supposed to be awake. I felt sick. My pulse pounded in my ears. My bedroom seemed impossibly dark, the air thick with something unseen. Then my closet door creaked. Slowly, something inside was moving. I took a step back, my body screaming at me to run. Then my phone buzzed again. A new message. Unknown. Number. Don't turn around. Cold fear crashed over me. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. But I felt it. Breath. Right against the back of my neck. I never liked my basement. Something about it always felt wrong. It wasn't the usual childhood fear of dark spaces. I was 17 now, too old to be afraid of shadows. But every time I had to go down there, my skin prickled, and I felt like something was watching me. That night, I was home alone, curled up on the couch with my laptop. A storm raged outside, the wind howling through the trees, rattling the windows. Then, the power went out. Everything was swallowed by darkness. I sighed, reaching for my phone. The flashlight flickered on, casting long shadows against the walls. The breaker was in the basement. I had no choice. My heart thudded as I made my way downstairs. The old wooden steps creaked under my weight. My light barely cut through the thick darkness, revealing the concrete floor, rusted pipes, and rows of storage shelves. I found the breaker box in the corner. I reached out, fingers brushing against the cold metal, when I heard it. A quiet, wet breathing, right behind me. I spun around, my flashlight shaking in my grip. Nothing. Just rows of boxes, a dusty workbench, and the old mirror leaning against the far wall. My own reflection stared back at me, wide-eyed and pale. I swallowed hard, turning back to the breaker. I flipped the switches. Click, click, click. The lights flickered, once, twice, then came back on. I exhaled in relief, glancing around. The basement was the same as before, empty, but something felt off. Then I noticed it, the mirror. My reflection was still standing there, but I wasn't. A sharp, icy terror gripped me. My reflection, it wasn't copying. It just stood there, staring. Then it smiled. Not a normal smile, a wide, stretching, impossible grin. I stumbled back, my breath caught in my throat. My reflection lifted a hand, slowly, deliberately, then pressed its palm against the glass. A crack formed, thin at first, then spreading like veins across the surface. Then, with a sharp, splintering snap, the glass shattered, and something stepped through. I always hated the attic. It wasn't the dust or the cobwebs that bothered me, it was the silence, that heavy, suffocating stillness, like the attic was holding its breath. My parents had left me home alone for the week. I was sitting in bed, scrolling through my phone, when I heard it, a soft thump from above me. I froze. It could have been the wind, or maybe an old box shifting. Then, another thump, closer. I stared at the ceiling, heart pounding. My attic didn't have an entrance in my room. The only way in was through a hatch in the hallway, and I knew for a fact it was locked. I tried to ignore it, convincing myself it was nothing. Then my phone buzzed. A new message. Unknown number. Why aren't you answering? I swallowed hard, my fingers shaking as I typed a response. Who is this? No reply. I sat there gripping my phone like a lifeline. Minutes passed. Maybe I imagined it. Maybe Kriak, the hallway. The attic hatch was opening. I leaped out of bed, heart hammering against my ribs. My breath came in short gasps as I grabbed the nearest object, a lamp. Then, a sound I'll never forget. Slow, deliberate footsteps. Something was coming down. I bolted for my door, slamming it shut, locking it. My whole body trembled as I pressed my ear against the wood. Silence. Then, a whisper. Right outside my door. I know you're awake. I clapped a hand over my mouth, trying to muffle my shaky breathing. My phone buzzed again. Unknown number. Open the door. Tears blurred my vision. I stayed dead silent. Then, a tap, tap, tap on my door. Software playful. Then the doorknob started to turn. Slowly. Deliberately. I backed away, my mind screaming for me to run, but there was nowhere to go. Then, my phone buzzed again. I didn't want to look, but my hands moved on their own. A photo of my door, taken from inside my room,